What does the story of Genesis have to say to us today in the 21st century? Well, welcome to the Rooted Together podcast. I'm your host, Charles, and today we are in Genesis chapter 1, starting a new series called The Beginning, the King and His People. And today we are in Genesis chapter 1 with the beginning and the King. And wouldn't you know it, the Bible begins with the words, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." And we might read all through this, and we might think, this is great. It's talking about day 1 and day 2, all the way to day 6, and we think that's interesting. But what is this saying? Like, how would you teach this in a group, or how would you preach this, other than just going, God created everything? Well, as we read through the book of Genesis together, I want us to do several things. One, I want us to consider the surrounding context, and that being, who did Moses write to? And so as we jump into Genesis, we have to ask that question. And we see that Moses wrote to the people of Israel on the edge of the promised land. They had wandered around in the wilderness for 40 years, and now they stood on a cliff overlooking the Jordan River, seeing the land that God had promised Abraham, the land that they had been promised when they left Egypt, the land that they had went into, and then abruptly said, we can't take it. And then God punished them by having them walk around for 40 years until that generation died out. And that is the audience to which Moses is writing. He's writing to them as they prepare to go into the promised land. And he begins his story to them, which is really our story as well. Within the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And as you read chapter 1, you'll see that God forms and he fills. He takes from chaos and he makes order. Verse 2, now the earth was formless and empty, and darkness covered the surface of the watery depths. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters. Then God said, let there be light, and there was light. And we see from there that God takes from order, from chaos, and he creates order. From emptiness, he creates things. From nothing, he creates everything. And that's important because the Israelites, as well as you and me, are living in a land that has a God of this and a God of that. So think back to that early culture that they were heading into, where there was a God for everything. Animalistic, where the wind blows, that's a spirit. Or they had a God of this land and a God of that land, the God of the ocean, the God of the harvest. And what Moses is telling his people before they go in to possess that land is he says, God is not the God of water. He's not simply the God of this area, this plot of land. He's not simply the God of you. He's not the God of light or the God of darkness, that he is the God of all things. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. He didn't be a part of a pantheon of God's creating. He alone created. And he's telling them what you believe, who you follow is unique in all the world because he created everything you see. He forms and he fills. And we're going to see that pattern of forming for 3 days and filling for 3 days. And what Moses is trying to communicate to his people is that God formed and he filled. He is the king over all things. And therefore, as you go into the land and you see the God of this and the God of that, you know they are not real because God has created all things. He has formed and filled all things, and therefore all things owe him and sit under his authority. Now, notice as you continue down to verse 4, then God said, let there be light, and there was light. God speaks, it is. He doesn't work with creation to create things. He speaks, and it happens. He is sovereign over all creation. And then verse 4, and this is important, God saw that the light was good. And this is a pattern repeated, that whatever he creates, he sees that it's good. And he separates light from darkness. And we go, okay, so God orders, he forms, he fills, he brings from chaos, and he makes order. And he also says, it is good. And we think, okay, great. Well, what is he telling? What is Moses telling his people? He's telling them that as you enter into the land, God determines what is good and what is not good. And brothers and sisters, for us in the 21st century, there's a lot of voices trying to chime in to say what is good and what is not good. But we listen to our King, who is king over all, sovereign over all creation. He tells us what is good. And he says it's good because he's deemed it good. And therefore we can trust when he says light is good, dark is good, night is good, land and water, all these things he creates, he says they are good. We know they are good because he has put his stamp of approval on it. He determines what is good. And as you read through Genesis 1, and I'm just panning through here, and I've read it, and as you read through it, look at the repeating phrases, then God said, and then God said it was good. And look at how he orders things. He forms, and then he fills the things in the last part. And then we get down to the last verse of verse 1, and it says, God saw all that he had made, and it was very good indeed, because again, God gets to establish and determine that. And then evening came, then morning, the sixth day. And we have this story unfolding before us where a king is creating and forming and bringing from chaos and bringing order. And that very king is ordering for us a good universe. And Moses is telling his people that's who God is. That's the God you worship. And brothers and sisters, when we read Genesis chapter 1, that is who our God is. He is the king, the sovereign over everything we see, things we can see, things we can't see. He formed, he filled, he brings order from chaos, and he determines what is good. And so as we read through Genesis, we want to see the beginning, the king, and his people, who we get to meet in chapter 2 and on. And we get to see this unfolding story of the ages, of a God who creates for no other reason than he desires to create, and a God who sustains because he desires to sustain. And we see a God whose people in chapter 3 are taken away through rebellion, and a God who pursues those broken, fallen, rebellious people all the way through Revelation. And it's this unfolding story that weaves itself through every verse and word of Scripture. And it begins here with, in the beginning, God created. So as you go about your day, see all that God has created. Thank him for it. Even though it is fallen and broken, it is good because he says it's good, and he will redeem what we broke. Brothers and sisters, welcome to Genesis, the beginning, the king, and his people. I look forward to joining you in chapter 2 next time. I'll see you there.